All right. It is now 4 o'clock, so we'll get this session started. Thank you for coming. As you can see, our session is Beyond Silos, Building Real Collaboration Between Libraries and Campus Stores for Smarter Course Materials Access. We're excited about this. As you know, on some campuses, the libraries and the campus stores are not necessarily all on the same page, and we have some examples where we have some collaboration, so we're super excited about it. We have Aaron Ochoa from the University of Davis College Store. That's an independent store. And his colleague, Allison Linnaeus from the UC Davis Library. We have Cheryl Schrader-Gherkin from the University of Arizona Libraries. And Dan Carlson from the University of Arizona Campus Store, another independent store. That's important. I was a professor for quite a while, and so I like to get learning objectives out there because we're successful, we do these things. If you emerge from this, whatever your position is, in understanding how to initiate and structure communication between stores and libraries, success. If you understand the real examples we're going to give you, success. If you learn how to identify and overcome persistent technical and instructional barriers, and then if you gain some real ideas for improving the coordination across these stakeholders, it's a success. I'm Mike Hale from Vital Source Technologies, Chief Learning Officer. I'm going to have a number of questions for the panel, and in each case, we might start with the University of Arizona, and they'll each answer it from their perspective, and then UC Davis, and then we'll switch up. But we chose some good questions for you, and we're excited about it. The first question, can each of you, and we're going to start with Cheryl from the library side of Arizona, and then Dan, can you give a quick picture of how your campus store and library operate in terms of course materials, whether they're in the library or if they're through the store?
Is this on? Yes. Okay. We have had a partnership for, at least 10 years. And the way we actually run our adoption process in partnership with the campus store is that they send us their adoptions daily. And so we review those adoptions and we see what we own with an unlimited license, we see what we can purchase, and then we immediately add that content as quickly as possible to the campus store, which they then review. So we do have a shared team spreadsheet, which is amazingly helpful. And Dan is our Excel wizard and has taught us many tricks and formulas for sort of improving our system and making it quick so that we can identify titles that are being adopted every semester that we know about. So we've been able to do some shortcuts by being able to use some of these formulas. Back in the day, we used to do one huge list once a semester, and that was very problematic in lots of ways. So fortunately, over time, we've developed great systems for being able to get this information in place rapidly. So we also have the luxury, we have 2 people at our libraries employed to do this work. So we do recognize that that is a luxury that not every library has. Our library values this relationship and our ability to participate in textbook affordability that contributes to student success. So, Dan.
So as Cheryl said, the partnership with the library and the campus store was called the bookstore back then. It started in 2013. It predates Cheryl and myself. And we came together with UITS, Academic Affairs at the university, it was called Course Load. It was the first digital content back then. And that kind of started the relationship with the campus store, or the bookstore back then, and the libraries together. That relationship has grown, and as Cheryl says, we share everything with the library. We communicate, we share all of our adoptions from all of our instructors to the library. It's open communication because our goal is the exact same thing. Our goal is student success, student access, student cost savings. So why wouldn't we partner together?
Okay, I wanted to mention a couple of things right before we jump into this. Mike said that we are independent stores. Do you all know what that means? Yes, no. Okay, we got some yeses and a bunch of nos. Okay, so those of us that are up here are part of the university. We are owned and operated by the university. We are not a Follett or a Barnes & Noble, which is what we call a lease operator that is on your store. So my paycheck is the same kind of paycheck that my colleague here has. And so that maybe put some context into why our relationships can be fostered as quickly as they can and what they end up being. Second of all, both universities have a program. We call ours equitable access. You call yours first day access? Pay one price, which means that the students are paying a single price to have content delivered to them, and they have an option to opt out. So I want to put that context out there. So we're not talking about individual titles. We're not talking about coming in and buying one item and another. This is how the programs work at our universities. Okay. So like University of Arizona, Davis works with the library regularly, mainly with communications about here are the adoptions we're getting from the faculty. And basically what happens there is we also have a Teams spreadsheet that's shared. Every week, we send over, here are the new adoptions. The library then goes through them and says, hey, here are the ones that we already have access to, as long as it has unlimited access in digital format. Not only do they send out what they have, but they can use that as a buying list. Because one of the things we heard from our library is that they had two main issues. The first issue being they have no idea what to buy because nobody tells them. So now we're sharing that information so now they know exactly what they could potentially procure. The second thing is they did buy stuff, but nobody uses it. So how do we get people to utilize these items that are being procured on their behalf? And so the way that that works is when we have our program and the students go into their LMS, they see publisher content, they see OER, they see library resources, all in the exact same page. And so when we send them to a library resource, it is the exact link that the librarians have given us to say, hey, we have this in EBSCO. This is how you get it. Because they're in the LMS, it's already a single sign-on, so the student gets to just click it, open it, and read it. So that's how we kind of work through that workflow.
I just wanted to add, since we also were speaking about course reserves, we also have a course reserves program at UC Davis, and it's elective, so professors can choose whether or not to submit their reading lists through Canvas, and we have Leganto integrated with Alma, and we also have a similar spreadsheet that we go through, and starting in COVID, we kind of had we started a policy that we would adopt ebooks whenever possible for students. So we go through and try and get any of our reserves titles in ebooks. And a lot of times the list is very similar to lists received from the bookstore. So they're complementary towards each other, but faculty are not required to use course reserves. So sometimes we don't have all the titles.
He'll turn it on for you. It's good.
Okay, sorry. We, at the libraries at University of Arizona, we do not have course reserves. We haven't had course reserves in a very long time. So this was sort of a natural pathway for us to be able to get our content more readily in front of students, because previously we were just giving links to the instructors to add to their LMS, and if you have ever seen a variety of instructors' course pages, they vary greatly. Sometimes they were very easy to find, and sometimes they were really buried, and sometimes they grabbed the wrong link thinking it was an unlimited license, and it was a one-user license. And so this has really helped both streamline that process for students and instructors, but also really opened the conversation with a lot more clarity to instructors, because they don't understand how library resources work. They don't really want to understand. They just want the resource, and the students just want the resource. So this has been really helpful.
And one other thing I want to add is we deliver the content through the partnership with VitalSource. So that's where Mike comes in, VitalSource comes in. They have allowed their systems to be used so we can place in our content into the LMS. So the University of Arizona, I think, is the largest library user, the most titles we have. So without them, we wouldn't be able to deploy it to all the students as we do now.
Thanks. You said this collaboration's been a long time, well over years. Yours a little shorter, but still a while. How did you get started, and how did you develop trust? Or was it even a problem? But how is that built over time? Let's start with our Davis colleagues.
Okay, so really it was conferences like this. For years, we would attend a conference and they'd say, you need to have a relationship with athletics, with alumni, and with the library. Great. You tell us that year after year after year, but nobody told us how. Till finally someone said, take them to lunch. Go find somebody and say, let's go to lunch. Let's talk about things. And oh my God, were we frightened the first time. I did not know what to think. I thought, oh my God, they're going to ask me what were the last book I read. I don't know what to talk about. But the grand thing about doing something like coffee or lunch is you can talk about the menu, you can talk about decor, you can talk about whatever. But the point being is you start that process. You start having that conversation. We meet quarterly, the libraries, academic technologies, the LMS group, and the bookstore. And I have to say, maybe a quarter of the conversations now are about work. The other 3/4 are about family, vacations, what's happening in your personal life. I had a dog that passed. Oh my God, I'm so sorry for that. That's how you build trust. You talk to people about what's important to them. Yes, the work is important, and yes, you'll get there, and you'll work through that. But the point is to have a conversation outside of just work. So that's my suggestion to you all.
Just to go off what Aaron said, is that trust, it's built. As I mentioned, the library and the campus store predates us, but that trust was built. And Cheryl came on, and Elizabeth came onto the team, and the other Cheryl kind of stepped back some. But that trust was there, but it still takes the new people to continue to build that trust, to continue to meet. We meet weekly, once a week we meet. We share our ideas, we share thoughts, we share how vital source systems are going to improve so we can deliver the content, and it's just talking. It's what it is. They meet every quarter, but we meet weekly. So.
All right. So collaboration, certainly relationship is important, but once you know your names of the dogs, it can be hard. How do you coordinate responsibilities? How do you ensure things aren't duplicated, missed, particularly when you're interacting with instructors, because you interact with them in different ways? And where do students come into it in terms of understanding what they need to know?
I think one of the benefits of meeting so regularly is that we learn each other's work. And often we're the libraries, so people naturally reach out to libraries when they don't know who else to reach out to. So we, for years and years and years, have fielded many questions about the campus store or about course materials or about any myriad of things. And the beauty of being of having this collaborative relationship and really understanding each other's work is that we can sometimes answer each other's questions without having to bring in anybody else, but we know when to bring in, I know when to bring in Dan. We've got an instructor, this is way beyond my understanding. We're gonna bring in Dan, Dan's gonna take over, and it's really quite a seamless experience for the instructor. And so students also, our frontline staff, our front desk staff at our library knew about this Pay One Price program. We provided them with answers to their questions. We still get a lot of questions about how to opt out. We still get a lot of questions, just random questions. Our frontline staff know how to answer those questions, or they refer them to myself, or we then refer them to the campus store. So I think that's one of the benefits of really establishing that understanding of each other's work, which is really, really important, because not only does it encourage a much more open line of communication, but the ultimate benefit is the user, because they don't get bounced around. They don't wait 3 days to hear from somebody because you don't have these workflows in place. And to me, that's the most important process, because instructors are always emailing at the last minute and they need something immediately. and they don't like to be put off a day or two. So,
You know, and I'll add to that too. When we started our EA program, Pay One Price, the library was also instrumental in that. Because this is a campus-wide, I mean, the campus store runs it, mind you, but it's delivered throughout the whole campus. So without the contacts that Cheryl and Elizabeth and Michael Brewer has, they were instrumental in helping us start the program. They were instrumental. They could meet with groups that we weren't allowed to meet with. You know, at UA, we can't just email instructors if we want to. We can't just email departments. We have restrictions of who we can actually contact. And they have others that they could contact with. And they have other databases that they have access to that we don't have access to. So that partnership isn't just, oh, here's the list every day, and here's the titles we have or that we can purchase. It's developed into more of a stronger partnership in many different areas.
I think for UC Davis, it's worked quite well because faculty are not, as we said, required to adopt course reserves, but they are more likely to work with a bookstore. So between the two places, we make sure that the books are covered for the students. I don't know what else to say.
So I think the biggest piece of that is when the program itself was being developed, we made it very clear to the faculty. We went to every chair and asked for 10 minutes of one of their faculty meetings to explain the program. And it was myself who went and did those presentations. But the whole point was to put my face out there. I needed the faculty to see I am the person that if you have a problem that you're going to reach out to. Here is my card. Here is my phone number. And that was one of the things that we wanted to ensure, not only from the faculty's perspective, but when the program was being rolled out and we were talking to folks at financial aid, at the library, to student accounting, the bursar's office, is that this is a bookstore program, and then any questions you get, just send them to us. We'll take care of it. And if at some point in time we need to loop in somebody else because the question is outside of our ability, then we will. Then we have those contacts to say, oh, you know what? Student, I can't help you with this. Let me get you to student accounting and I can do a warm handoff. You know what, faculty, professor, I can't get this. This is an old edition, but you know what? Maybe library reserves can get it for you. Let me hand you off to somebody there at the library and they can take care of you. But part of it was ensuring that everybody understood that there is a one point of contact. And in our case, that's the bookstore. And then us having those relationships with other people to say, okay, we can't take care of it, but here's somebody who can, and then being able to hand that person off.
Thank you. All right. One of the things that's been, I've seen in a lot of sessions here is around OER content. How does OER fit in your respective programs, either on the store side or the library side? And how do you work together to ensure that cost is taken into consideration? And also some of the things around OER are, you know, accessibility and things of that nature.
So we have kind of an odd relationship there. OER is part of our program, much like the library resources, but ours is a little bit different too, because we help financially support OER, and this is how we do that. I sit on a committee that helps faculty, you know, transition into OER products, and basically what we do is we help them, you know, they move into utilizing either for adoption, or creation. Each one is funded a different way. And the funding that goes into that pot for the faculty actually comes from the bookstore. And the way we do that is we say, okay, faculty A, you went from, and I'm going to make these numbers up, you went from a $50 Pearson ebook to an OER item. So I'm going to pay the library $8 for every student that's in your class. People are going to say, well, why are you paying for OER? You shouldn't be paying for OER. I was like, no, I don't see that as a cost. I see that as a savings. And because of how our programs are built, the cost savings is what's necessary. That's how I'm able to keep what the library can provide and what OER can provide is savings to the program, which means I have not had to raise my prices to my students for 5 years. Actually, I've never raised my price. The first year, I went from $199 to $169.
And explain what that means. What does that number mean?
So the initial charge is what the student pays per term. Now, I'm a quarter school, so that's 3 terms. just to put context, because they're a semester school, so it's going to be different. It was $199 in year one. After that, we looked at all the numbers and how everything turned out and realized we can reduce that. So we reduced it to $169 and been able to keep it at $169 for the last 5 years. We also provide 7,500 scholarships to cover EA prices, so about $1.2 million every year goes to financial aid to cover these scholarships. That money is directly tied into OER and what the library saves us for when we use the content that they procured as opposed to going directly to the publisher. And here's why that works. When I go to my actuary and ask, here's all the costs to my publisher, what is it that I need to charge my students? We plan it as a break even. So they look at it at break even. And we take into account that we're going to be paying for all of it. Well, then we end up working with the library, and the library says, no, actually, this stuff has already been procured by the university. There's no reason for us to procure it twice, right? So that ends up becoming savings. That savings is what we can utilize for those scholarships.
Also just wanted to add quickly that we also have open access titles that are not necessarily OER in our catalog, and those can be added to our course reserves through Leganto.
Arizona?
Thank you. So, as Michael mentioned, we are an independent store. We're not Follett, we're not Barnes & Nobles. So we are an auxiliary unit. So as the campus store, we have to provide our own funding in order to be an auxiliary unit. But with the cost savings, as Aaron mentioned, for us, we've given annually, or since 2018, $38 million back to the students. Every year we give $71,000 in scholarships, $115,000 for our youth programs, and TFOB, Tucson Festival of Books. Have anybody heard of TFOB? We have it in Arizona? You have? All right, run.
So what is it? Explain it.
So Tucson Festival of Books, it's actually its own organization in Tucson. We have, it's always during our spring break, which can fluctuate a little bit. So we have over 100,000 participants, people like you come to our university. We have speakers from around the country, some overseas, that come to the Tucson Festival of Books. We also, we give $578,000 to the student government group. This is the campus store. And then with the savings, we also have $5.3 million that we give annually to the university. So with the savings, this ties back to the library. This isn't just, hey, this is what the campus store does. But with the savings of they provide between 25 and 30% of titles, that helps us keep our cost down. So once again, we are, what is our purpose? What is our goal? Why are we here? We're here for the student. We're here for accessibility. We're here for cost savings for the student.
So we have at the University of Arizona Libraries a dedicated OER librarian, and so Cheryl has been very active, Cheryl Casey, for many, many years working on helping instructors create OER. We have a Pressbooks license, so a lot of instructors take resources and remix and rework them in our Pressbooks tool. And so OER has always been part of our adoption universe. We have noticed an uptick in OER in the past year or two, and not quite sure exactly how to account for that, but part of it is some of this messaging that we have between both units that we continually share out. So they send out a message to instructors to remind them to submit their adoptions. I follow up. I send out a message saying just a reminder, but then it's also a great opportunity to talk about library resources, library services. So it benefits both organizations, and I think, again, that's part of the really strong point of having that sort of combined effort, because it enables us, even though there is confusion about who does what. It took a long time for a campus to understand that Pay One Price was the campus stores program. We were just there to support and provide free resources for the program, but it becomes sort of a trusted collaboration. And so I think the library resources enables that conversation with instructors to talk about trying to adopt free resources to help keep the price of the overall cost of the program low. And we've had the opportunity, I had given this example earlier, that last semester we had a resource that was adopted for like a 400 level astrophysics class, and the digital list price of that, when I was looking at our spreadsheet, was like $12,000. And I thought, whoa, what's this? And so it was just a resource that the library had that an instructor was able to adopt and use for his class that we were able to add to the LMS system. So the value to campus is really extensive, and instructors recognize that, our faculty recognize that. So there is an increased willingness, I think, to submit adoptions. I don't know if anybody in here has ever been part of any of this work, but faculty members generally don't like to submit adoptions. It's just one more thing they have to do. And so it's a lot to wrangle on a large campus of trying to get information about what's being used. But I can tell what's being used because I see turnaway data. When I see 25 turnaways for a single user license in one day, I can say, okay, that's definitely being used for a course. Now I got to figure out who's using it so I can then email the instructor to say, okay, first of all, it's a one user license. This is really a problem. You got a class of 60, blah, 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 right? So there's a lot of detective work that has to go in, and it's so much easier if they just submit their adoptions. So we have that on sort of auto repeat over and over and over. So we're making good progress, I think, on our campus.
One thing I'd like to add to that from the student's perspective, because of how our programs work, a lot of the non-adoptions are self-rectified by the students. Because the students are going to come in and say, hey, I paid this thing, and my professor said I have to go get this other thing. How come it's not covered? And that then allows us to say, oh, great question. Let's email them and find out. And then we can kind of start that conversation. And sometimes the faculty just don't know. And that's it. They just didn't know, and after that they do. But it's a good way to have the students kind of advocate for themselves that supports them.
Great, thanks. I've got a couple more questions, but I want to make sure we have some time for questions. So if you have one now, happy to take it.